Well, let's talk party politics. We'll be speaking with the National Publicity Secretary of Nigeria's main opposition party, the PDP, Mr. Ini Ememobong, joins us live from our Abuja studio. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, glad to be here.
First things first, if you described Governor Fubara's defection as a self-inflicted injury, how would you describe Governor Adeleke's defection?
Well, Governor Adeleke's defection he's a victim of circumstance which is vicarious because every problem is human caused and therefore should also have human solution. And at the level of the leadership which he belonged to at the party ought to have acted decisively. You see, the challenge is immediately we begin to feed the monster without knowing that we'll end up in the belly of the monster. After a while, we become victims. So if we feed animals to the monster, we feed others to the monster, and we think that time would solve problems. Time allows human beings to solve problems. It doesn't on its own solve problems. So it's vicarious in the sense that action by leadership, strong action by leadership, ought to have been taken from 2023. Immediately the decline started. But there were negotiations. I mean, you also cannot fully blame them because sometimes you think that with negotiations, when passions are calm, that people could reconsider their position. But unfortunately, it didn't until the convention took the decision it did in Ibadan. So that's the nature of what has happened. He's become a victim of circumstances arising from vicarious liabilities, which he cannot completely extricate himself from.
So you sort of give excuses for Governor Adeleke of Osun State, but for Governor Fubara of Rivers State, no excuse at all. What is really different? Because he could well say, in fact, if there's anybody that has been a victim of circumstance, it is me. So what exactly is at play here? Why do you give excuse for one and the other you slam?
No, we're not giving excuses. We're saying that both are circumstantial, and even the victims of the circumstances themselves had a role to play in the conflicts that eventually engulfed and they became victims from. So we're not making excuses. But in the case of Fubara, you do know that Fubara voluntarily became a candidate of the party. And you do know that people have said, the people who brought him have always said that, oh, there were agreements. We're talking about agreements. Agreement should be agreement. Till today, he hasn't said what the agreement was. But his political party stood by him. And the point of our anger is really when he mentioned that he wasn't secure in the platform. We all have great sympathies for Fubara. Even as a person before becoming a publicity secretary, I had sympathies for him. A calm, gentle person who is pushed to the wall, who has no other direction to move than in the opposite direction. But to attempt to lay blames, other than to lay blames, where blames ought to be. Because if you backtrack and begin to look at the origin of the crisis, you know that the origin of the crisis is between two people. So one person is talking, the other is not talking. You remember that people rose up at the beginning of this crisis and began to speak for him. And after a while, he came out and said, no, don't worry. It's a father-son matter. And after a while, a state of emergency was declared. People started, advocating, saying, and he went silent. And you see, when I spoke to some governors, especially Governor Bala, and said, what happened? Governor Bala said, look, we were ready and we have deployed at some points, but the governor would either remain incommunicado or will say, don't worry, we would handle it. And you see, so voluntary non-fit injury, you cannot do harm to a consenting person. So when you look at this circumstance, even as journalists, you seated there, you would definitely agree that we have been confused about the approach which he wants. And you cannot fight more than the person who is hurt. You cannot cry more than the bereaved. So while he has our sympathies, but the attempt to shift blame is what we are very angry with. And that is what we shouldn't do. Every time there is a problem and we need to find a solution, there's no need shifting the blame. When you get into a voluntary agreement, today he has not said what agreement he got into. He has not really told Rivers people or us on camera or confided in anyone what the real issues are. So people have just jumped into this battle supporting him because they feel that no one should be oppressed to the point where a governor becomes a sitting duck. But how has he even appreciated the people who fought with and for him? When he returned from the state of emergency, what was his speech? How encouraging was that speech for the people who fought for him? During the preparations for convention, I remember a journalist asked Governor Bala about what the party was doing. Governor Bala clearly said, look, we need to allow him, that he's been through a lot, that they've been speaking. So you can't just throw other people under the bus because of your actions and inactions. So while if you read the statement that we released, while we sympathize with him and we know that this is a situation where Stockholm syndrome has happened, where a captive has fallen in love with the captor and he's unable to differentiate between where the real problem lies. But we frown against that conscious amnesia where he picks and chooses where the blame should be. He knows where the origin of his problem is. He knows where the continuity of his problem is. When he went to court about the issue of defection, he knows what the truth about it is, and he should be able to say that. So again, that deflection by him begins to beg the question whether he is placing the blame where it should rightly be.
So many questions, emerge from your defense of your party, particularly in the Fubara case. Would it be the first time that a predecessor would be having an agreement with, a successor governor? And would the party have been diligent to call out a governor at all if, the agreement was just going smooth sail without things turning awry? That's on the one hand. I'd like you to respond to that first before I come with the second.
You do know that people do not enter a crisis until the parties themselves have declared war. So if people have agreements and the agreement is going fine and the state is not suffering, you have no business going into it, because you won't even know there was an agreement. You just think everything is going on fine. But it is when people begin to shout or things begin to happen to suggest that a crisis or a problem has got, that's when third parties come in. So you don't go into settle problems where they are not. In this circumstance, you would recall that even when he went to the meeting with the president, did he consult the party? Did he consult the Governors Forum, where he was deputy chairman of the Governors Forum? Did he seek advice from other people? Remember that even after his election as governor, it took a long while for him to even associate with the party. We quite understand, from the different stories going around that maybe his hands were fettered. But until immediately you feel the pinch, he who wears the shoe, no way it pinches. Immediately you feel the pinch, you begin to call for help. Until you call for help, it's difficult to get help. Now, that does not in any way exculpate the suffocation that he has suffered using state apparatus. That shows, which is why our statement is showing that individuals are becoming more powerful than institutions that would force a system. Remember, the gentleman conducted local government elections. We gave him all the support to do so as a political party. But what happened to the local government elections? Remember that he sat there and they declared a state of emergency. We kicked against it. My predecessor, Ologunagba, issued statement against it. We kicked against it. The party was even ready to go to court on it. So how much more support did he expect? How much cooperation, how much information did he also pass? I mean, there are times when you know that you cannot speak, but you consciously filter information to those who can speak for you.
Are you saying that, such agreements do not exist between governors, predecessors, and their successors?
I'm not saying that agreements do not exist, but the first thing is that there cannot be a valid agreement to commit crime. So if the agreements, political agreements where people agree to siphon state funds, agree to deal with the states and lead the states in a way and manner that is not consistent with the Constitution, that's an illegal agreement, and anybody who gets into it has the right to leave it. But what we are saying is that if people have agreements among political groups, oh, this one will take this one will take this one will take that, those are not agreements that are illegal. If at any point you're unable to meet those agreements, then you begin to discuss. If it becomes a problem, then you bring it formally to the party. But as we sit here, we do not know what the terms of the agreement were. People are having agreements every day. I had an agreement to be here this morning, and I'm here. The only problem would have been if I had agreed that I'll be here, and you publicized I'll be here, and this morning I wasn't here without any valid reason, then you have a chance to say, look, you have spoiled our credibility. We agreed that you'll be here, and you're not here. But if at the point of coming here, I had a flat tire, or I become sick, and I called to you to say, listen, I can't make it again, then the world would think that we have disagreements, but you would understand, and you probably would tell the world, oh, and he was meant to be here this morning, but he's not here, because despite the agreement, we have an understanding. So, but where agreement fails, understanding fails, then if the parties to it begin to speak out, then the world, the third parties will come in, the political party will come in.
Well, it just looks like abandonment, because the governor has left the party, and hence the PDP is now calling him out on the issue of agreement, whereas the party would have been silent if all other agreements, legal or illegal, are going smooth sail without any form of accountability. Mr. Memobong, talk to us about why the PDP governors did not go all the way with the court case initiated to challenge, the state of emergency and suspension of democratic institutions by the president in Rivers State at the time, which is probably what Governor Fubara is citing as the party abandoned him when he needed the party the most.
No, that's not true. You do know that even at the last MBA conference, very senior lawyers raised the issue that there was a court case and the Supreme Court did not fix, and the Supreme Court has original jurisdiction on that matter, did not fix the hearing of that matter up until the time we had the MBA conference. And at that time, it was just, I think, a month or two to the expiration of the rest, which was sought to be protected. And lawyers frowned at it to say that a matter of this nature, that the Supreme Court ought to have fixed it and decided one way or the other on the matter, because immediately the expiration of the state of emergency occurs, then the matter would have become academic like it is. Number one. But number two, when you're fighting for a person, you must fight in the interest of the person, number one. Number two is that when you're fighting in the interest of the person in whose interest you're fighting for must feel that you're fighting in his interest. So irrespective of your best intention, if that person does not feel so, he will reach out to you to say, look, I don't feel so. So when you look at the disposition of the governor, you do know that even in that whole period, he discouraged people from fighting, from shock. There were people, there were commentators who were coming out, even from River State, to attempt to fight Ankyo Briggs. A lot of the people who were talking, what was the disposition? He will sort the matter out. I mean, so you cannot cry more than the bereaved at a funeral so that you don't become suspicious. The PDP governors took a position, they aired their position, they took steps, but the steps you're taking in furtherance of a person's interest must have the person's go ahead, so that you don't file a case in court and someone comes and says, I didn't send you to do that, or you're complicating my issues for me. We have been having discordant dispositions from the governor. When he was ready to fight, everyone fought along with him. Look at the local government election. He had all the support from everywhere. You know, even when the state authorities were attempting to push him back, you saw how Nigerians supported and fought back. But in the circumstance where you are not fighting from the front and you're asking people expressly or impliedly to backtrack, then people begin to think maybe fighting further would hurt your interests. And since they love you, they also heed to you. It's like a patient who tells you, if you give me injection, I will die. That's a very strong statement. You cannot still go ahead and give that patient injection against his own will. And he says, look, doctor, if you give me this injection, I'll die. So you either need to find a way to get the patient to change his disposition, or you find alternative medication to give that patient.
Well, that's a very interesting analogy. We could stretch that, but because of time, let's talk about where the PDP is currently now. Two groups pulling apart, almost tearing the whole fabric of what is left of the People's Democratic Party. But when you look around you and you count, you realize that you have 5 governors on paper, but less than that at heart left in the People's Democratic Party. So what was once Nigeria's most vibrant party is now even struggling to pull its weight as an opposition party. And for a lot of people, it's just how the mighty has fallen. There's enough blame to go around, I must say, and it's still going around. Your NWC says it has INEC's backing. The FCT ministers group says, well, no, we also have we had our own meetings and we believe that we're in the right, and there's court cases back and forth. And in fact, the courts are saying, go and resolve your issues at this point. My question to you, Mr. Memobong, is, as a party, Do you agree that the PDP has failed?
To fail would mean that an examination has been set. When you look at the ruling party, despite having a president, look at what happened in Osun. The president had to intervene. A political party looks homogeneous when you're looking at it from outside. But when you look at it inside, it is a potpourri of heterogeneous, countless heterogeneous struggles for power, for influence, for different things. So in fact, the political party is the hotbed for conflict, which is why the most critical leadership tool that every leader of a political party must have is that of conflict resolution. So to that extent, you must understand that as an opposition political party, in this era where you have external influences pushing as much as they can to constrict the political space and obfuscate oxygen.
At this rate, by 2027, there are two governors that are suspect right now. Are you begging them to stay, or they can do what they want?
No, in the circumstance that we are, you do know that except for the legislature where the law binds their hand, every executive has the capacity to do what is. It would be legal, but it would be immoral.
So you're not begging anybody?
And we are reaching out. No. I'm coming. We are reaching out. The Turaki-led administration is reaching out. The Bala-led Governors Forum is reaching out, discussing exhaustively with them. But you know that there's a thin line between what is illegal and what is immoral.
All right.
And so if you take a legal but immoral step, the people, it speaks to your morality.
We have to go now, because of time. I just wanted to understand what you were doing to try to keep those governors. But we wish the PDP the very best. I think this is also a lesson for the APC as well right now. The publicity secretary of the People's Democratic Party at the national level, Mr. Eni Ememabong, thank you for your time on the program.
Thank you very much.
We'll take a break now. And when we return, we have more for you on the show. Stay with us.